Chosen one, brace yourself because a powerful door is opening right now, and everything that comes next in your life is about to shift in ways you weren't expecting. God is asking you something right now. Don't walk past this moment, because what you're about to hear is not random, it's not a coincidence, and it is not meant for everyone. It's meant for you. There's something moving in the spiritual dimension right now, an opening that is happening whether you're paying attention or not. And if you miss it, you could miss the entrance into the season you've been waiting and praying for. You feel it, don't you? That quiet sense that something is different, that a page is turning, that everything you've been through was somehow preparing you for a place that wasn't accessible to you before. Stay with these words, because what you're about to hear might be the exact moment you look back on and say, "That's where my next season began." Type Amen in the comments if you believe God is opening a new door in your life right now. You didn't stumble onto this video by accident, and deep down you already know that. There's an image I'll never forget. I was standing in front of a closed door, literally, the entrance to an office where I had gone to chase an opportunity I knew in my bones was mine, and I knocked, waited, heard nothing, knocked again, and walked away that day carrying the weight of something lost. What I couldn't see then was that door closing was not rejection. It was a redirect, straight toward a door I never would have found if the first one had opened. Maybe that's exactly where you are right now, standing in front of something that won't budge, wondering if your moment is ever really going to come, wondering if God forgot about you somewhere along the way. This video is not motivation, it's not self-help, it's not a feel-good message. It's a direct word from the throne of God for a chosen one who is standing on the edge of their next season and still can't see the door that is already opening right in front of them. When Joseph was thrown into the pit by his own brothers, everything around him screamed that it was over, that he had been abandoned, forgotten, discarded by the very people who were supposed to protect him. And yet, that pit was not the end of his story. It was the beginning of a journey that would take him from the lowest place imaginable to the highest seat of power in the most influential nation of his time. Every single door that closed on Joseph, the betrayal, the slavery, the false accusation, the prison, felt like a wall, but was actually a corridor with a specific destination, a corridor that was designed not to destroy him, but to develop him into someone who could carry the weight of what was waiting on the other side. The chosen one doesn't always get to see the blueprint while they're walking the hallway. They just have to keep walking. And that's exactly what Joseph did. He kept moving, kept his character intact, kept believing even when the evidence around him said there was nothing left to believe in. That's the kind of faith that doesn't just open doors, it builds them. There's something deeply personal about a closed door because it never feels like redirection in the moment. It feels like rejection, plain and simple. I remember losing a position I had worked years to earn, a role I had poured everything into, and when that door closed, I genuinely believed my best days were behind me. 3 months later, I was standing in a room I never would have entered if that first door had stayed open, holding an opportunity that was 3 times bigger, 3 times more aligned with who I actually was, and surrounded by people who were built for the same mission I was carrying. The door that shut in my face wasn't punishment. It was protection I hadn't asked for and couldn't have designed myself. That's the thing about God's closed doors. They don't look like gifts when they're happening. They look like loss. They feel like silence. They sting like rejection. But every chosen one who has walked long enough eventually looks back and sees the same thing. The closed door was the kindest thing that could have happened to them at that exact moment in time. Here's what nobody tells you about closed doors. They're not passive. They're not just neutral events that happen and leave you to figure things out on your own. A closed door is an active redirection. It is God steering you away from something that would have cost you more than you can currently afford to pay, whether that's your peace, your purpose, your health, or your time. Think about the paths you didn't take, the relationships that didn't work out, the plans that collapsed before they ever got started. Now think honestly, how many of those, in hindsight, would have taken you somewhere you didn't actually want to go? The chosen one is being guided even in the moments that feel like abandonment, especially in those moments, because the doors that close are just as much a part of the divine strategy as the ones that open. You don't have to understand every closed door to trust the one who is closing it. You just have to resist the temptation to force it back open when God has already moved on to building you a better one. So what door has closed in your life that you're still standing in front of, still knocking, still trying to make sense of? Because here's what I want you to sit with. Maybe that door doesn't need an explanation. Maybe it doesn't need to make sense right now. Maybe what it needs, when what you need, is not understanding but acceptance. Acceptance that the story isn't over just because that chapter ended. Acceptance that a chosen one is never truly stuck, even when everything feels completely still. The closed door is not your final answer. It is a sentence in the middle of a paragraph that hasn't finished yet. And when the paragraph is complete, when you can read the whole thing from beginning to end, you will see that the closed door was not the worst thing that happened to you. It was one of the most important. Keep that thought close, because what comes next is going to show you exactly what was being built while you were standing on the outside waiting. A tunnel has no light in the middle. That's not a flaw in the design. That's the nature of what a tunnel is. The light only appears when you are close enough to the exit to actually see it, and by that point, the hardest part is already behind you. The problem is that most people make their decision to quit somewhere in the middle, in the darkest stretch, in the part where the entrance is too far behind to go back and the exit is too far ahead to see, and they walk away never knowing how close they actually were. That's one of the most painful truths about giving up too soon. You never get to find out what was waiting just around the bend. The chosen one is someone who has learned, often through brutal experience, that the darkness in the tunnel is not a sign that there is no exit. It is a sign that you are still inside, which means the exit still exists, which means you have not missed it yet. The discipline of continuing in the dark, when there is no visible reward, no confirmation, no applause, is exactly the kind of discipline that separates those who receive the door from those who almost did. There was a season in my life where I worked for 2 full years without seeing a single visible result. 2 years of showing up, planting, watering, building, believing, and watching nothing break the surface. No fruit, no sign, no confirmation that anything I was doing was actually working or leading anywhere meaningful. I want to be honest with you about how that feels, because if you are in that season right now, you deserve honesty more than you deserve empty encouragement. It feels like foolishness. It feels like you are the only one who didn't get the memo that this wasn't going to work. It feels like everyone around you is moving forward while you are somehow frozen in place, putting effort into something that the universe seems completely indifferent to. But then something shifted, not gradually, suddenly. Everything I had planted broke through the surface at the same time, and what looked like 2 years of wasted effort revealed itself to be 2 years of foundation. The chosen one's harvest doesn't always come in portions. Sometimes it comes all at once, and it comes exactly when the foundation is strong enough to hold it. The door that is opening in your life right now did not appear overnight. It was under construction for longer than you realize, and the building materials were things you probably didn't recognize as valuable while you were going through them. Every prayer that felt like it dissolved into the ceiling before reaching anywhere, that was a brick. Every day you chose to keep your integrity when cutting corners would have been easier, that was a brick. Every moment you stayed faithful in a small thing when you were desperate for something bigger, that was a brick. Every tear that fell without an audience, every sacrifice that nobody saw, every time you said yes to God when everything in you wanted to say not yet, brick, 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 brick. The chosen one builds their next door in seasons that look like stillness from the outside. What the outside cannot see is the construction happening beneath the surface, in the invisible places, in the character, in the spirit, in the quiet daily decisions that nobody is filming and nobody is celebrating, but God is counting every single one. So if you are in a season right now that feels like nothing is happening, I need you to hear this clearly. Something is happening. You are not being ignored. You are not being forgotten. You are not behind. You are in the construction phase of a door that is being built to last, and the reason it's taking time is not because God is slow, it's because what's on the other side requires a version of you that isn't quite finished yet. The chosen one, who receives a door before they are ready to carry what's behind it, will either collapse under the weight or walk away from it entirely. God is not withholding your next season out of cruelty. He is completing your preparation out of love. Every day that passes in this season is a day closer to a door that was built specifically for you in the dark, while you were trusting without seeing. And when it opens, and it will open, you will understand every single day of the wait. There is a fundamental difference between a door you forced open and a door that God opens for you, and you can feel that difference the moment you step through it. When you force a door open, through manipulation, through striving, through sheer willpower and human cleverness, you enter that room carrying a specific kind of anxiety that never fully leaves. It's the anxiety of someone who knows, somewhere deep in their chest, that they got in on their own terms and not on divine invitation. And that anxiety quietly whispers the same thing every single day. What if they find out I don't belong here? What if this gets taken away? What if I can't hold this together on my own? The chosen one who has forced doors open before knows exactly what that feels like. The exhaustion of maintaining something that was never meant to be sustained by human effort alone. You spend more energy holding the room together than you spend actually thriving in it. And eventually, the door you forced open closes again, usually in a way that's more painful than if it had never opened at all. I have walked through doors I forced open with my own intelligence, my own charm, my own ability to convince people and situations to bend in my direction. And I want to tell you honestly what happened every single time. I exited those rooms the exact same way I entered them, in my own strength, on my own, without the kind of fruit that lasts beyond the moment. I'm not saying those seasons were wasted. Every forced door taught me something essential about the limits of my own ability and the difference between human achievement and divine appointment. But there is a season I entered not because I was clever enough to force it, but because God opened it and said now. And that season, nobody has been able to touch. Not circumstances, not people, not my own mistakes. What God opens, He also guards. And the chosen one who learns to wait for a God-opened door instead of forcing the next available one will experience a stability and a peace that no amount of personal striving could ever produce. Your next season is different from everything that came before it for one specific reason. It is not being opened by your effort. It is being opened by your obedience, your faithfulness, and a divine timing that was set before you were even aware this season existed. That means when you walk through it, you won't carry the weight of having to maintain it yourself. You won't wake up every morning wondering if today is the day it all falls apart. You won't spend your energy performing for people whose approval you needed to keep the door from closing. The chosen one entering a God-opened door enters with a completely different posture, not the posture of someone who snuck in and is hoping nobody notices, but the posture of someone who was personally invited and knows it. That confidence changes everything. It changes how you speak, how you carry yourself, how you make decisions, how you respond to opposition, how you treat the people around you. You stop shrinking. You stop apologizing for being in the room. You start operating from a place of belonging that no one gave you, and therefore no one can take away. So here is the question worth sitting with right now, the one that might be the most important question this entire video asks. Are you exhausted right now? And if you are, is that exhaustion coming from fighting to keep something open that God has already closed? Or is it coming from striving to force something open that God hasn't opened yet? Because if the answer is either one of those, then what you need is not more strategy, not more effort, not more human cleverness. What you need is to stop, to be still, to ask God honestly which door He is opening, and then to put all your energy not into forcing something to happen, but into being ready when the right door moves. The chosen one's greatest power is not their ability to make things happen. It's their ability to recognize when God is already making things happen, and to align with it instead of fighting against it with everything they have. When a season changes, it is never just one thing that shifts. Think about what actually happens when summer turns to autumn. It's not simply that the temperature drops a few degrees and everything else stays exactly the same. The entire environment transforms. What was growing starts to change color. What was full starts to shed. What was hidden underground starts to prepare for a completely new cycle. The light itself changes. The rhythm of the days changes. The very atmosphere carries a different weight, a different texture, a different invitation. That is exactly what happens when a chosen one crosses the threshold into a new spiritual season. It is never just one area of life that gets upgraded. It is the entire ecosystem of who you are and what surrounds you that begins to shift in response to the new environment you have entered. Most people expect their next season to feel like their current season, with slightly better circumstances. But what God has prepared is not an upgrade of the same room. It is an entirely different house with different rooms, different views, different people at the table, and a different version of you sitting in the chair. I remember the moment my last major transition happened, and I want to describe it in a way that goes beyond the surface, because what actually changed was so much bigger than what anyone on the outside could see. Yes, the financial situation changed. Yes, the opportunities changed. But what nobody tells you about a genuine God-opened season is that it reaches into places you weren't even asking for help with. My circle changed, not because I cut people off dramatically, but because the new environment naturally attracted different people and naturally created distance from others, without force, without conflict, without painful confrontation. My tolerance changed. Things I had accepted for years as normal suddenly became impossible to sit with, and I understood for the first time that what you tolerate is directly connected to what season you are in. My vision changed. What I thought was the ceiling of what was possible for my life revealed itself to be just a low floor in a much taller building. The chosen one doesn't just get a new chapter, they get a new pair of eyes to read it with. Here is what you need to prepare yourself for, because nobody prepares you for this, and it can catch you completely off guard. Your next season will bring changes you didn't ask for alongside the ones you did. Some relationships that felt permanent will naturally fade, not because anyone did anything wrong, but because certain connections belong to specific seasons, and when the season ends, the connection completes its purpose. Some habits that felt comfortable will suddenly feel unbearable, and that discomfort is not a problem. It is your spirit recognizing that it has outgrown something that no longer fits the version of you that is emerging. Some opportunities will appear that don't look like what you imagined your breakthrough would look like, and the chosen one, who is flexible enough to receive what God sends, instead of only what they pictured, will capture things that the rigid, expectation-locked version of themselves would have walked right past. The door is not just an entrance, it is a filter, and what comes through with you into the next season is exactly what belongs there. Nothing more, nothing less. So prepare yourself, not with fear but with expectation. Prepare yourself for a version of your life that you cannot fully design in advance, because what is coming is larger than your current imagination can contain. Prepare yourself to meet people who will feel like they were placed in your path with surgical precision, because they were. Prepare yourself for opportunities that arrive disguised as ordinary moments, the kind you could easily dismiss if you weren't paying attention with the right kind of alertness. Prepare yourself for a version of yourself that you haven't been introduced to yet. Someone who carries what you've been through without being defined by it, who walks into rooms with a quiet confidence that wasn't manufactured but forged. The chosen one entering their next season is not the same person who was standing outside the door. The crossing itself changes you, and the life waiting on the other side has been arranged for exactly who you are becoming, not who you were when the waiting began. There is a specific kind of paralysis that happens to the chosen one when the door finally opens, and it is one of the most misunderstood and under-talked about experiences in the entire journey of faith. It's not the paralysis of someone who doesn't want to move. It's the paralysis of someone who wants to move so badly that the fear of getting it wrong completely freezes them in place. You've been waiting for this. You've prayed for this. You've cried in the dark over this. And now the door is open. And instead of walking through it with the confidence of someone who earned the invitation, you're standing on the threshold, feet planted, heart racing, mind flooding with every possible version of what could go wrong on the other side. What if I'm not ready? What if I fail? What if I disappoint everyone who believed in me? What if the version of me that walks through that door isn't good enough for what's waiting there? The chosen one standing frozen at an open door is one of the most heartbreaking sights in the spiritual realm, because everything they need is right there, and the only thing between them and it is the story they are telling themselves about why they might not deserve to enter. I want to be completely transparent with you about something that I don't hear many people admit publicly, because I think your breakthrough might depend on you hearing it. I almost didn't walk through the biggest open door of my life, not because I didn't see it, not because I wasn't ready, but because I had spent so long in the waiting season that I had unconsciously made peace with waiting as my permanent state. The waiting had become familiar. The struggle had become my identity. And when the door opened, a part of me didn't know who I was if I wasn't the person waiting for the door to open. I stood on that threshold for weeks, not days, weeks, until someone looked me in the eye and said something I will never forget. The door won't stay open forever. That sentence broke something loose in me. I stepped through. And the moment I did, everything I had been afraid of on the other side revealed itself to be so much smaller than the fear I had been feeding on the outside. The chosen one's greatest battle is often not the fight to get to the door. It's the fight to actually walk through it. Here is what is really happening when a chosen one hesitates at an open door, And I want you to look at this honestly, because the truth of it might set something free in you today. Hesitation at an open door is almost never actually about the door, it's about identity. It's about the deeply embedded belief that who you currently are is somehow incompatible with what's on the other side, that there is a gap between the life you're looking at and the person you believe yourself to be. And that gap is a lie, not a misunderstanding, not a mild exaggeration. A lie constructed piece by piece from every rejection you internalized, every failure you let define you, every voice that told you that you were too much or not enough, or too late or too ordinary for something extraordinary. The chosen one was never ordinary. The enemy knows that, which is exactly why he works so hard to make you believe otherwise, and especially why he works hardest right at the moment when the door is open, and all you have to do is walk through it. So what is it for you? What is the specific thing that makes you hesitate when you can feel the door opening? Is it fear of failure? The terror of trying your absolute best and still not being enough? Is it fear of change? The discomfort of leaving behind a version of your life that was painful but at least predictable? Is it fear of being seen? The vulnerability of stepping into a bigger room where more people will witness both your victories and your mistakes? Whatever it is, I want you to name it right now, not to shame yourself for having it, but because you cannot walk through a door while you are pretending the fear isn't there. The chosen one doesn't enter their next season fearless. They enter it afraid and moving anyway. They enter it with trembling hands and a decided heart. They enter it saying, I don't know exactly what's on the other side, but I trust the one who opened this door more than I trust the fear that's telling me to stay. And that decision, that one step of decided, imperfect, trembling faith, is all it takes to change everything. Not every open door comes with a neon sign above it and a choir singing in the background to let you know it's the one. In fact, most of the most significant doors in a chosen one's life arrive in disguise, wrapped in something so ordinary, so quiet, so seemingly insignificant that it would be completely effortless to walk right past it without a second thought. It might look like a conversation that starts casually and ends up going somewhere neither person planned. It might look like an invitation that feels too small to matter, from someone you almost forgot existed, to something that doesn't immediately seem connected to anything you've been believing for. It might look like a thought that keeps returning to your mind at the most unexpected moments, in the shower, in the middle of the night, during a conversation about something completely unrelated, a thought that has no logical explanation for why it won't leave you alone. It might look like a restlessness, a holy dissatisfaction with where you currently are, a quiet but persistent inner stirring that tells you something is shifting, even though nothing on the surface has visibly moved yet. The chosen one who learns to read these signals, who develops the spiritual sensitivity to recognize a door before it's fully open, will never miss a divine moment, because they were waiting for it to look more dramatic than it actually was. I'll tell you exactly how the door that changed my life appeared, because if I describe it the way it actually happened, you might recognize something similar already occurring in your own life right now. It appeared as an inconvenience. It was a meeting I had on my calendar for a day when I was exhausted, unmotivated, and had already mentally talked myself into canceling. Everything in me wanted to stay home, to rest, to defer it to another week, when I would feel more ready and more present. And I almost did. I came within minutes of sending that cancellation message. Something stopped me. Not a dramatic divine intervention, not a voice from heaven, just a quiet, almost imperceptible nudge that said, go. So I went. I showed up tired, underprepared, and honestly not at my best. And in that room on that day, a connection was made that became the hinge point of everything that followed. The chosen one's open door is often hiding inside the moment they least felt like showing up, which is exactly why consistency and obedience in the small things is not a minor spiritual discipline. It is the practice that keeps you positioned for divine appointments. God rarely announces a door with fanfare, and I think there is a profound reason for that which goes beyond what most people consider. If every open door came with obvious supernatural confirmation, then walking through it would require very little faith. It would simply be the logical response to undeniable evidence. But God is not primarily interested in producing logical responses. He is interested in producing faith. And faith, by its very nature, requires moving towards something before you have complete certainty about it. So the door comes quietly. It comes wrapped in normalcy. It comes in a form that requires you to be paying attention with something deeper than your natural eyes. with your spirit, with your discernment, with the kind of inner knowing that the chosen one develops not through studying signs, but through intimacy with the one who places them. The person who spends more time studying the signs than spending time with the sign giver will always be one step behind. But the chosen one who walks in close relationship with God develops an almost effortless ability to sense when something is divinely orchestrated, even when it looks completely ordinary from the outside. So here is the practical invitation, and I want you to take this seriously, not as a vague spiritual suggestion, but as a concrete exercise for the next 7 days of your life. Pay attention to what is appearing repeatedly, not just once, not just twice, but persistently. The same name, the same idea, the same opportunity, the same door appearing in different conversations, different contexts, different forms. Pay attention to what makes your spirit quicken, even when your mind hasn't caught up with a logical explanation yet. Pay attention to the invitations you're tempted to dismiss as too small, the conversations you're tempted to treat as insignificant, the nudges you're tempted to rationalize away as just your imagination. The chosen one lives in a world where coincidences are not random, they are coordinates. And when you start reading them as such, you will begin to see that the door you've been praying for hasn't been absent from your life. It has been present, patient, and partially open, waiting for you to push it the rest of the way through. Before every significant door in a chosen one's life, there is a moment that happens in private, not on a stage, not in front of a crowd, not in a moment that anyone else will ever fully witness or understand. It happens alone in the quiet, in the space between what you can see and what you are being asked to trust. And in that space, God asks something of you. Not because he needs it, he is God, he lacks nothing, but because you need the act of giving it. Because there is something about the posture of surrender, the deliberate choice to release what you have been gripping with white knuckles, that unlocks a dimension of trust in you that cannot be developed any other way. The chosen one who has never been asked to lay something down before entering a new season has never actually been to the threshold of a truly significant door, because every door worth walking through requires a version of you that travels lighter than the version that arrived at the entrance. You cannot carry everything from your last season into your next one. Some things were never meant to make the crossing, and God in his mercy asks you to put them down before you step through, not to punish you, but to free you for what the new room actually requires. Every major transition in my life has been preceded by a specific ask from God, and I want to walk you through what that has actually looked like in practice, because I think it will help you identify what he might be asking of you right now. Before one season, what he asked for was courage, the courage to say yes to something publicly before I had any private confirmation that it was going to work out. Before another, what he asked for was patience, not the passive kind of patience that simply waits, but the active kind that keeps serving faithfully while waiting, without bitterness, without performing for validation, without secretly keeping score. Before another transition, what he asked for was the hardest thing I have ever been asked to release, a relationship I had held on to far past its season because I was more afraid of the grief of letting go than I was willing to admit. In every single case, the ask came before the door, the surrender preceded the opening, and in every single case, the moment I actually gave God what he was asking for, the door moved. Not weeks later, not months later. The movement was almost immediate, as if the surrender itself was the key that the door had been waiting for all along. There is something specific that God is asking of you right now, before you walk through the door that is opening in your life, and the reason you know what it is, even if you haven't admitted it to yourself yet, is because it is the thing that surfaces in your mind every time everything else gets quiet. It comes up in prayer. It comes up at night when you can't sleep. It comes up when you read something that has nothing to do with it, and somehow it still reminds you of it. It is the area where you have given God almost everything, but held back just enough to maintain a sense of control. Maybe it is a person you need to forgive, not for their sake, not because what they did wasn't real or wasn't painful, but because the unforgiveness you are carrying is too heavy for where you are going, and God cannot open the door fully while you are anchored to that weight. Maybe it is an area of obedience that you have been negotiating with. You've said yes to everything except this one thing, and you keep finding reasons why this particular thing is the exception. Maybe it is fear itself, the fear that has been your companion for so long that releasing it feels like losing a piece of your identity rather than gaining freedom. Whatever it is, the chosen one who is serious about walking through the door that God is opening cannot afford to treat this moment casually. This is not a suggestion. This is not an optional spiritual upgrade for those who want to go deeper. This is the step before the door, and without it you can stand at the threshold for years, watching others enter, wondering why the door that is so clearly open for you somehow never fully admits you. God is not being difficult. He is being precise. He knows exactly what you will need to carry what is on the other side, and He knows exactly what will disqualify you from carrying it if you bring it through. The ask is not a burden. It is a gift, wrapped in the form of a requirement, given by a Father who loves you too much to let you enter your next season, still dragging the chains of your last one. So sit with this. Get quiet. Ask Him honestly, God, what are you asking me to release before I walk through? And then listen, not with your mind, but with your spirit, because He will answer. He always does. And when He does, say yes, because that yes is the last step between you and everything that is waiting on the other side of the door that is already opening. Chosen one, the door is real, it is open, and everything you went through was preparation for what's on the other side. You didn't arrive here by accident. Not a single day of waiting was wasted. Close your eyes, take a breath, and say it out loud. God, I trust the door you are opening. I'm walking in. Amen. If this reached you today, it wasn't by accident. Drop a like. It helps this message find another chosen one who needs it right now. Subscribe and turn on the bell. What's coming next is for those ready to walk into their next season.